Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Online Marketing Simplified. I'm your host, Brad Parnell, and it's great to have you here listening today. We've got a real special guest on the show today who's going to enlighten us on the concept of Stoicism, what it is, why it's important, and how to apply it to your life. So, Austin, it is great to have you here on the show today. We've got Austin Lester,
Good to be
and
here.
yeah, so to kick things off, tell us what in the world, give us a brief introduction to Stoicism, maybe what it is and a little bit of its history.
Yeah, so Stoicism for me personally has been massively impactful as far as having a framework for approaching daily situations because I felt like growing up I was never really introduced to like ways to deal with emotions that pop up. It's like, yeah, you're told like what's socially acceptable when you get angry or upset or you have anxiety, but you don't necessarily have a way of processing that. And for me, Stoicism has been huge for that purpose. Basically, it's a philosophy for living life. Basically, it's basically a set of tools, like a toolkit for like a frameworks of approaching how to process things that happen to you in your day to day. And it is like an ancient Greek philosophy, so it originated in like ancient Greece, like 300 BC, like Socrates, all that stuff. Um, but originally, like it got carried down to like the Romans, and probably the most famous Stoic was Marcus Aurelius, who wrote the book Meditations, which is a pretty popular book in the business book circle as far as like a framework for dealing with things that happen to you. Yeah, he was a Stoic, and probably one of the most famous ones that people are most familiar with right now.
Yeah. How did you first encounter Stoicism?
Okay, I was working in the oil fields about 5-6 years ago, and I was coming up with ways because after about like, cause yeah, the money's good and the job was good, but I started like getting very discontent with the way like my day to day, like what I was doing day to day out in the oil field. And so Stoicism just like introduced this way of processing that and like kind of managing, oh, I'm just anxious about like, because I was considering leaving my job at the time and doing something different. So it's like there's a lot of anxiety associated with that because it's like, okay, I'm just used to making this fat paycheck every 2 weeks. Now I'm thinking about leaving. And Stoicism just brought in like this concept of like you can't control this anxiety. Like it's a whole separate thing from your logical decision making. And yeah, it's like it allows you to separate the anxiety and make a decision in spite of it being there in a sense. Because Stoicism, like the gist of it would be like it's all about maintaining like tranquility, like being calm despite being anxious about something. Like basically eliminating negative emotions would be kind of one of the primary concepts of the philosophy. So anger, anxiety, fear, all those things, which I think we can all agree we want to get rid of. So kind of one of the primary concepts of it.
So, how long ago did you have that epiphany moment or start kind of embracing Stoicism?
Ooh, it was about 5 years ago when I first got introduced to it. I've been just like all the original Stoic works and a bunch of books on it, kind of like to get the foundation of it. Haven't really retouched it until recently. Actually, when you brought up we were gonna have this podcast, I was like, I want to rebrush on this stuff, and I actually got reinterested in it. Um, yeah, I've been applying concepts of it throughout these last 5 or 6 years. One of the things that's been massively impactful is like I had like the framework of Stoicism from reading the original works and like going through the meditations book and all that stuff. Which it has nothing to do with meditation, by the way. The book is basically just his diary of like his observations on like daily life, like an emperor of Rome. Um,
So, how have you seen that? I love the oil field story and the stress and embracing that. How have you seen Stoicism impact your life personally?
oh, it's impacting every day. Basically, I mean, yeah, you got the framework for approaching situations like just random day to day things that can increase your anxiety levels and spiral you out of control. Like say something as simple as someone cutting you off in traffic on your way to an event or something. It's like what Stoicism kind of teaches you is to recognize things that are like in your control, and then things that are completely outside of your sphere of influence or control. So like just having that like framework is like something bad happens to you. Like the original track would just be to immediately get angry, road rage, whatever. But like if you have like stoicism as a framework in between that, you're just like, oh, this thing was just completely out of my control. It's not that big of a deal. And it's crazy how impactful just having that like that stop and like that filter you put it through that would just completely just make it like a non-event. Like you just let it happen instead of getting angry. Because that anger would carry over to your job, your company, your networking event that you're going to. You may not be as excited about meeting people and talking to them. So
So tell me, you talk about these frameworks. Are there any like easy frameworks that you could share, like kind of the basic framework of Stoicism, or maybe an exercise if someone's getting angry in traffic or has a moment where they need to step outside of themselves? What is a, just to put you on the spot, what's kind of the framework of the questions people need to be going through to maybe kind of do some practicing of Stoicism?
yeah, well, it really helps me. At least the first one I go to is I'm like, oh, is this thing in my control? Just thinking about that in general separates the emotion that you're currently feeling from the event itself. And so you're able to actually logically process what's going on. So just literally being like asking the question, was this thing in my control? Usually it's not. Usually the things that make you angry or upset are not in your control. So you're just like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. You just kind of let it fly. Um, Another thing, which this ties into like mindfulness, is like being able to actually recognize an emotion what for what it is. A lot of people don't even know what like the feeling of your body when you're angry. You don't take the time to take a step back. You're like, oh, I'm angry right now, or I'm upset this guy cut me off in traffic. You just get upset. So mindfulness would be all about just just. I'm not much of a teacher when it comes to mindfulness, but there's some resources that can really help you to like do like breath work and stuff like that can bring you like into the moment and to recognize like these emotions that you're actually feeling.
Yeah.
There's an app called Waking Up that's pretty good for that. I've been using that for years. It's Sam Harris's app on meditation.
Okay.
But really all it is breath work and just
Yeah.
taking deep breaths in and focusing on the breath. It's that simple, but the longer you do it, you start to make these like insights into what you're feeling and things. It sounds weird to anyone that's never actually practiced it, but once you start doing it over a period of time, I'm still a novice at this thing. You can get deeper and deeper and deeper, but it's been massive for just recognizing my emotions.
That's great. Have you heard of Wim Hof?
Oh, that sounds familiar. He's the breath guy, right? So he like does the deep breath work and all that.
Yeah, so I just got introduced to that too from a coach I'm working with, and I just started doing some of the breath work yesterday, and it is
Cool,
it is
cool.
amazing just how you feel. You don't think that just holding your breath and breathing and doing these exercises can really make a difference. On the
It's
surface, it
nuts.
sounds very just like a non-essential, but once you do it, same thing with cold showers. It's like once you do these simple things, like his big thing is, or the two things I'm learning are just that breath work and then even short cold showers and how
Oh yeah.
what it does to your mind and body and resilience and everything, which sounds kind of like almost some of the fundamentals of Stoicism. Like those are core pieces to
Actually, like
stabilize and
the concept of a
prepare.
cold shower would be one of the things in Stoicism. Like embrace, like you should like do things that are uncomfortable throughout your day to kind of remind you of the comforts that you currently have and not take them for
Mm.
granted. All about like being comfortable with the way things are.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. I listen to a lot of the Spartan podcast too with Joe DeSena, and they talk a lot about the uncomfortable things. It's the whole premise of a Spartan race, right? It's like get outside of your comfort zone, do
Oh,
something
so there's a
really.
podcast around the Spartan race. I didn't know they had a podcast. That sounds interesting.
Yep, it's called The Hard Way, which is exactly what we're talking about. So let's talk about some of the relevance of Stoicism today. Austin, why do you believe Stoicism is useful or even necessary in our modern life today?
I don't know. For me, at least personally, it's foundational. Like I don't see how I would be able to, because for me personally, like anxiety is like it's pretty prominent in my day to day. I think it's going to be the same for a lot of people because the way I define like anxiety would be like we're always thinking about that next task that we're going to do, that thing we're doing later today, and like the more you're focused on the things you're doing later or the thing like all the tasks that you have to do, like those future focused thoughts in a sense. Those just start building on each other. I think that's so many people now. I just get the feeling I haven't like talked to a lot of people about this to get it, but I can just feel the anxiety from people around me. It's like they're always thinking about what they need to do, what's going next. They're not really like just in the present moment. And everything, all of your progress happens from what you're doing right now in this moment. So it's absolutely critical and foundational, in my opinion, for so many
Yeah.
people. especially entrepreneurs that are dealing with uncertainty and just you don't know where things are going to head. You could give your all to a business that you're building and it would still fail. It's like being able to deal with the anxiety around that is huge. To just do your current task just with a calm state of mind.
Well, how many entrepreneurs too? So those of you listening, entrepreneur, small business owner, creative, whatever you're doing, just roll out of bed without a routine, and you just
Yeah.
start tackling life's problems. Right? You
Yep.
go from rolling out to looking at your social feed, putting out fires on emails with one hand while making coffee with the other hand.
Yep. It's like it's all just I could just feel the anxiety. I could just feel it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
for
mean,
me, it's like I have to get up. Like I literally have to like at least do some breath work in the morning, something like that, or like writing is also kind of a form of meditation in a sense. It's like just outputting your ideas as they pop up in your head. All those random thoughts you have once you get up, it's been huge for me to just dump them in a note taking app or something. If I don't do that, then I'm gonna have anxiety for the rest of the day, basically.
that's good. So if you're feeling, so some of the symptoms are like feeling that stress, anxiety, a little bit of chaos. Um, that's where stoicism could play a big part in someone's life and change maybe just the way that they approach problem solving, approach stress by having a
It's
framework.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'm weird or something, but it was completely revolutionary for the way I approached life when I first got introduced to this. Or like the first, I still remember the first time I like sat back and like did like a meditation session where I was like, oh, that's a thought. It's like you don't ever take a time to like recognize that you're like there's a thought that's going through your head and you can just let it go away. Like it really is impactful.
Yeah, that's cool. So it sounds like overall kind of the core concepts. Did we cover that? It's a little bit of like breath work and meditation. What are some of the other concepts or principles that you'd like to share that maybe we didn't cover?
There's a lot. Like I said, the two primary focuses of the philosophy itself are maintaining tranquility, like just calm state of mind, eliminating all negative emotions, and also because this you could go down the rabbit hole on this and say if you want to just eliminate all negative emotions, then you would just not deal with people, right? Because it causes chaos. Dealing with people is stressful, and you have to do that if you're an entrepreneur or building a business, obviously. So the other component of it would be like yes, you want to eliminate all the negative emotions, but you have to deal with people, and you're gonna have negative emotions for dealing with people from dealing with people. So you kind of have this concept of like you also have a social duty to society in a sense. So that's why all the Stoics were very ambitious. It's because yes, they want to be calm and get rid of negative emotions, but they also have to serve society in the best way that they were designed to do. And kind of what makes us human is our ability to like reason and then like not listen to our emotions. So by
Yeah,
maximizing what you're doing to the society and eliminating emotions, you're kind of embracing most of what Stoicism, the core concepts are. It's pretty simple, but there's also the idea of like loving, like reflecting on mortality pretty often, just to remind you that you need to be heading somewhere. You can't just be complacent. So that's something I reflect on quite often is the fact it's like we're gonna die. It's gonna happen. This brings you right into the present as soon as you start thinking about it.
yeah. Hmm. That's interesting. So it's a highly logical, meditative, contemplative philosophy where most of us
Yep.
might live in kind of the emotional
Yep.
feeling world. This is kind of the counter to that way of living.
Because it's like that's what makes us human is our ability to be logical and not just act on anger or the emotion that's popping up at whatever given moment.
Yeah,
That's like
that's good.
necessary for living optimally as a human being, basically, in my opinion.
Wow. So what are some tools to practice it just in everyday life if someone is wanting to maybe kind of look into stoicism, maybe you've piqued their interest. What do you recommend or what are some of the tools that you'd have to share?
There's one concept is like make sure you design your goals around make them less externally focused. So it's called like goal internalization, kind of. I think that's the way to put it. But it's like instead of like let's say you're preparing for a tennis match, you're a tennis player. Instead of focusing on winning the match, you just focus on did I practice to the best of my ability leading up to this to enable success? Because winning a match is almost entirely out of your control. Yes, it's partially in your control, but the actual outcome, that guy could just be better than you or have years of experience on you. You have no idea. So it allows you to be okay with the inputs you're putting in instead of being all upset about losing it because that was your whole goal from the get go. Just
So I,
internalizing the goals and making sure it's controllable is huge.
yeah, so I've got a question for you. This is a good challenging question. So there's, if you know Jocko Willink,
Yep.
he's an, so he wrote the book. One of them is called Extreme Ownership, and he talks about it's kind of the idea of like everything is my fault, everything is my responsibility. So I wonder, I'm just curious your thoughts. How do you take that mindset or approach of everything is my fault, and then also be able to look at it from the other side to say, well, this is out of my control, so I'm at peace with it.
Interesting. Yeah, that is a challenging one. Let's see. I do
Yeah,
agree that you should take responsibility for everything. But like I said, there are things that are objectively outside of your control, like someone cutting you off in traffic. Like the thing you were on your way to do, you're gonna do. You decided it was best to leave your house and go do it. So if someone cuts you off, that's completely outside of your control. There's nothing you can do about it. But I do think for the majority of things, yes, you can take responsibility for. Is like, especially things that are partially in your control, like you're getting better at whatever skill you're using in your business. It's like you should be practicing that pretty often to get good at it and optimizing your chances of succeeding. So it's like those are things that everything that's outside of your control should not be something you concern yourself with. And like if it's partially in your control or in your control completely, then it's okay to be upset if you don't perform there because you should have been performing.
that's good. So it's really not to use as a cop out because I can see some people saying like, oh man, this didn't work because it's out of my control. When in reality, it could be, well, it's because you didn't prepare for it.
Yeah, it's like you have to accurately define what is actually outside of your control because there's a lot of things that are partially in your control and you should take responsibility for.
Yeah. And the reason I asked you that, I know that kind of put you on the spot, was I'm trying to think too, really high achieving and high performing entrepreneurs and people that understand that concept of take responsibility. I'm wondering if that's kind of a wrestling challenge of when do you draw the line of, was that something I could have actually done better at? Was there some chain of events that I could have done better that would have not given me this outcome? Or was it truly an objective not in my control that I can be at peace with? So just thinking out loud, that kind of internal struggle, I bet that's going to be hard, or maybe it's not hard. Maybe it's just me, but like trying to balance out what's actually you're not responsible for versus you are responsible for.
It's interesting because I don't know. I think for a lot of scenarios, it's pretty easy to tell. Like you could quickly just like write whatever you're thinking about down and realize that it's partially in my control. And
Yeah.
if like let's say like you don't dwell on it too much, just say like you lost that tennis match and you didn't practice as much as you should have, then yes, you can reflect on that. It's like that's like being past focus and like it's something you really shouldn't be
Mm.
thinking on too much. It's like you could look on it and be like, yeah, I should have practiced more, and you could be upset about not practicing more briefly, but you've learned all you need to know from that lesson. It's like just practice more next time. It's up to
Yeah,
you.
that's good. So just don't overthink it. Maybe it's deciding, figuring out like, hey, this is the stuff I could control. Maybe I could have done better here, but ultimately, this is the outcome, and
Yeah,
being at
and that's
peace with
that.
that.
Just move on.
Yeah, that's good. What are some of common misconceptions? I'm curious if you've heard anything that's been kind of a false like identity towards Stoicism or a false misconception about Stoicism.
Yeah, I think if you look in the if you looked in a dictionary and define stoicism, you'd get like a state of being emotionless or something like that. And I think it's a common misconception that like people that are stoic are emotionless. They feel nothing. Like you're supposed to be like a rock. But that's not the case at all. It's like everything I've said so far probably leads to the conclusion that you definitely feel emotion, but it's the way you act in response to it that defines being stoic or not. It's not being emotionless. You're not trying to get rid of emotions. You're just trying to control your response to them.
That's
Because
good.
if you're completely listening to if I listened to if I was anxious or not, just responded to that, I would literally just be binging video games all day or watching YouTube all day. Oh, I'm anxious. Let's run away from this.
Yeah, yeah. It's going into the fire or into
Yeah,
the problem.
that's one misconception I can think of. Another one would be that because you're not concerned with kind of the past or the present moment, like it's like it could lead to complacency. Uh, it could lead to complacency if you don't feel like this duty for contributing to the world in some way, which is what the Stoics believe is like you're supposed to act according to your nature. You're supposed to like contribute to mankind since we're like social creatures. It's what we were designed to do. So you have this duty to perform despite being complacent about the past and the present.
What I know there's probably so many books and podcasts and articles and uh, people that want to know more about how to start embracing and start studying it. What what like book recommendations or resources would you give to people that want to start taking that journey into learning more about Stoicism?
Yeah, there's some pretty good summaries, like modern books that have been written recently that kind of give you the gist of it. There's one that's called gosh, I'm gonna grab it right now. It's right back here. I have to
Yeah, see what you got.
unplug my headphones. So, okay, we got the Guide to the Good Life by
A Guide to the
William
Good Life by William
William
D.
Irving
B.
Irvine.
Irvine.
Yeah, this one's really good. It gives you kind of the whole summary of everything. Then you've got Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, which is just his diary of his thoughts as a Roman emperor, which is just cool in general.
Yeah, that's good.
Unplug my headphones again.
Uh-oh. Well, as you're plugging those back in, um, I think this is a really interesting concept. When it comes to marketing, what's funny is we always talk about people buy with emotion and they justify with logic. So the Stoic approach would very much be probably the logic approach. How do you take the emotion? Let's say like you're marketing to a Stoic. It's make sure that it's well balanced, or even heavier. The argument might be heavier on the logic side and less on the emotion side, because the Stoic is going to process things less on how this is going to make them feel and more about what is the possibility that this is going to give me the outcome based on the objective things that I can measure here. Is that a fair assessment?
Right. I think it's quite the niche to be marketing straight to Stoics. But yeah, I only know a few people that do that. There's a guy, he wrote the book Daily Stoic. Yeah, his whole brand is Stoicism, so I could see that being the case for like him hitting on logic. But I think generalizing hitting emotions is the go to because yeah, sometimes
Yeah.
the Stoics are even going to mess up and respond to the emotionally. So I know I do all the time. So
So you're saying even Stoics have emotions and can make emotional decisions.
oh yeah, like you got to be really on top of things if you're able to beat some of these marketers at their emotional tactics.
Yeah, that's funny. It's in marketing. There's always like the silly, um, crazy marketers out there that do whatever it takes to get it done and can be a little bit uh, over emotional and over kind of hypey. So it's funny when just talking about this, with emotion and logic. At the end of the day, what we think great marketing is just giving someone what they truly want and help be the bridge to get it. So when thinking about Stoics, the Stoics versus non-Stoics, um, and how you portray that message, I think that's just a good reason for combining great logic with great emotion. Like, hey, you want this thing, right? Yep, cool. How is that going to change your life, both emotionally and logically? And then the bigger logic discussion is, um, what are the steps to get this? And then is the payoff greater than the cost to get that thing that you want? Is it worth it? And how you process that.
Right,
So
exactly.
what
That sounds
So tell me, Austin, what podcasts or books or things are you reading right now to continue your growth and education on Stoicism?
I'm currently rereading the book I just introduced, The Guide to the Good Life by William B. Irvin. Rereading that because it's a good just summary of the whole philosophy. And there, I was subscribed to people on Twitter. I need to find this guy's name, but he has his whole brand is called the Daily Stoic. Oh, I think it's Ryan Holiday.
Hmm.
Yeah, Ryan Holiday is really big, and just following
Yeah.
him on Twitter you'll be introduced to Stoicism every day.
He's written some
And
really great sales books or marketing books, I believe. I think I've read a couple of his stuff. He's really good.
they wrote books like The Obstacle is the Way,
Yep.
uh, like a mix of self help and marketing as well.
Very cool. Yeah. That's great. Well, tell me, from a day to day standpoint, do you, other than just reading and listening to stuff, are there any other practices that you do that are now daily habits that you've introduced into your life?
Oh yeah, breath work is like just or meditation has been pretty. It's been daily for a while at this point. It's maybe I don't sit down and do like a 10-20 minute session, but just taking the moment to like take a deep breath and like completely just become present. It's so massive. I can't even describe it really. It's like it's the only way I'm able to make consistent forward progress with I guess just the way I'm built. It's like being able to take a step back and just and feel the emotions that you're currently experiencing, and then because a lot of times like when it comes to like anxiety and stuff like that, it's like you just sit back and watch it, and then as long as you're not trying to control it in any way, it just goes away. So you could take like 10-20 seconds and just focus on breathing, and then you could be good for the next 2 or 3 hours.
And what was the app that you recommend for someone that wants to get into breath work? Where should they start?
Oh, I use Waking Up, which is Sam Ferris's app. It's on iOS and Android. Um, Not sure if they have a free version. They should, or at least it has a trial. And he has like daily meditations that are like 10 minutes long daily, where he guides you through the whole process. He guides you in the right direction to be able to like he guides your attention, kind of like focus on the breath, look at an object across the room, that kind of thing. And you think I guess 10 minutes feels long at the start, but you do it for 3 to 6 months, and it's easy. So I feel like I should be scaling it up at this point. I'm still usually doing only 10 minutes and short bursts of it throughout the day, but it's absolutely massive for me.
That's cool. That's really cool. Well, so finally, Austin, any parting thoughts or key takeaways you'd like to leave our listeners today?
Yeah, just start meditating, give it a shot, see if it has an impact on your life the way it has on mine. Because you could be skeptical about it and be like, oh, this is like it's not. It's like it's literally just breath work, and if you have any feeling that you're struggling with anxiety at all, it could change your life for the better. So give it a shot.
Yeah, that's great. And then where can people stay in touch with you if they want more insights on Stoicism or see what you're up to?
I'm mainly active social media on Twitter. So Twitter would be it's Austin Lester at it's Austin Lester.
Awesome. That's great. Well, Austin, thanks so much for joining today. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on Stoicism. And I hope listeners out here that you try some of this stuff. Try breath work. Try a 15-second cold shower. Download the app. Read some stuff. Even if you don't fully embrace being a Stoic and take that on as an identity, I think there's some important things to learn that can help your day-to-day decision making and how you solve problems, approach obstacles. And thank you so much, Austin, for being here and sharing. So make sure to follow him on Twitter. You can see his link. I'll put it in the show notes. And we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks.